There has been no indication that MDMA or psilocybin use, or even use of ketamine in a therapeutic setting, has led to abuse, recreational abuse, and illegal procurement and consumption of these substances in a way that is harmful or addictive. And so overall, by and large, some of the fears about maybe the addictive potential of these substances or leading to use outside of a therapeutic context have been debunked by the follow-up data and the research that we have to date. Large-scale population studies also show that psychedelics are not known to harm the brain or other body organs or cause addiction or compulsive use. And that is the classic psychedelics. So when we look at the ratio of initial of a lethal dose to an effective dose, we've got marijuana, LSD, and psilocybin all at much higher than a 1,000 to 1 ratio from the lethal to effective dose, meaning you can take up to and over 1,000 times the effective dose of those substances and not be at risk of death. So 2 of the top classic psychedelics, LSD and psilocybin, and then cannabis being in there as well. If you wanted to compare that to, alcohol, for example, it's a 10 to 1 ratio, potentially lethal to effective dose. So inebriation to a lethal dose of alcohol. So it's a significant difference there, even in just the lethality of taking a large dose of one of these classic psychedelics compared to a socially accepted and regulated legal substance of alcohol. We could also think about prescription medications. There are many prescription medications that, if taken in excess, would have lethal consequences at a much lower ratio than these classical psychedelics do. For example, cardiovascular medications might have a very narrow window, leading to arrhythmias of the heart and other things when taken at an inappropriate higher dose than what's prescribed. And even over-the-counter medications like Tylenol, which can cause a lot of liver toxicity and potentially death when taken in excess, even in the amount that's contained in a bottle off the shelf in a store. So that's important consideration. When we think about MDMA, we have to remember that MDMA is in the empathogen class that has structural similarities to amphetamines. They're more dopaminergic. The potential reward and therefore craving and potential abuse certainly can be higher with prolonged use. And I think this is part of what we need to understand with respect to how MDMA is used therapeutically. Is it's on very few occasions, at most 3 in the research, spaced apart. It's not something that's being used day in and day out, which would really begin to shift the neurotransmitter balance into more of a tolerance and withdrawal and craving type cycle that could be seen with regular use. So that is important to keep in mind. We certainly see a lot of the factors for safety profile more associated with the classic psychedelics. However, that is not to say that others like MDMA, mescaline, and other psychedelics, cannabis, are therefore dangerous. They're just probably much closer to other commonly prescribed or sold pharmaceutical substances or regulated substances that we already have access to in our society. So we've also seen, I think I said this, but I'll repeat it, that ketamine use in controlled clinical settings has not been shown to lead to addiction, even though ketamine itself may have a habit-forming potential if used regularly, or in the context of a person who has maybe some genetic inherited factors that might predispose to using substances to regulate internal states and becoming addicted to substances for that reason. So we also have to think of context and the well-being of a person who is going to actually be exposed to these substances. Even that said, in the population of humans studied, and ketamine has been studied for its use in potentially assisting with recovery from addiction, there still hasn't been any known addiction outside of those clinical studies that was caused by exposure.